Well, hello FMEers. I'm just bringing this video to you today because last week I tried to answer this question on the FME community and I think I was very confused about what was going on and I think I made a complete mess out of it. So I figured, hey, I'm going to try and redeem myself and make a new video and hopefully show you how this would work. So let's give this a shot. So the user wanted to expose attributes of a JSON fragmenter dynamically. Now so what they've got is a HTTP caller. It downloads some JSON from a website. They push it through the JSON fragmenter, and a number of attributes come out. And they said, well, how do I get my user to pick which attributes to expose in the workspace? And well, okay, you could do that with a with a user parameter, which is what I tried to do, but really that's not it's not going to work like that. I mean, again, I was getting confused, so there's really 2 points to take from that. If we say that this is the usual workspace where this person is authoring it and somebody else is going to run the workspace, well, the person running the workspace isn't necessarily going to need to make edits, and they just want to run it. I'm making that assumption there. So they don't even get to see the canvas probably. They could just run it through server or whatever. So the question really is what does the user want? Because they probably don't want to expose attributes in the workspace because they don't know what a workspace is. They don't care. They just want something out of the end of it. For example, they want these attributes in the output. That's probably what we need here. But I mean, there is the other case where you say, well, okay, well, maybe the users are just using this as a template. They're also workspace authors. And they do get to see and edit the workspace. And so we want them to have this choice as they're authoring the workspace as a sub-workspace or whatever. How can they automatically expose things? Well, they can't really do that with parameters. Why? Because parameters are runtime functionality. So I hit the run button, then I fill parameters in. So there's no point in me filling those parameters in and thinking it's going to expose something on the canvas, because it can't, because that's the parameters act at runtime, and we're talking about making changes on exposing things on the canvas, which is design time. So you can't really create a published parameter that says, oh, I want to expose some attributes on the canvas. And I think I proved that last week, because that's what I was trying to do. And you just can't do that. It's like, even if I run something, I say, oh, I want these attributes, but it doesn't expose them on the canvas, because that's not really what that parameter is for. So I think I'm going to ask why that's even a published parameter on there, because exposing something with a published parameter just doesn't make sense to me. So I think I have to talk to our developers about that and what it really means to do that. So if that person is a user, you're passing this workspace on to other workspace authors, and they're going to make edits, and you want them to automatically expose different things. That's not going to happen. It just can't happen that way. The other question, like the first question, was, well, what happens if they're not? What happens if they're just a user and they want to expose attributes, and not because they want them exposed in the workspace, but because they want to get them in the output? Really, that's what the user wants. The user doesn't care about exposing things. They just want to know what's in the output. So that's what I can help to answer. User there, Carrick Adrian, was totally on the right lines there. SchemaScanner is probably a good thing to help, because what I'm going to assume is that you don't really care about exposing things. It's more about what goes in the output from the user point of view. So I'm going to try and demonstrate that, which I know I can do. I know that can be done. The thing is, though, this is still going to be only sort of semi-dynamic. It's going to be dynamic in that the user gets to pick which attributes go on the output, but they don't. If the JSON that's being downloaded from the website changes, they're not going to get an automatic updated list of attributes. That might be possible, but I don't think I can do that. Certainly not in this short video. So really all I'm showing today is, well, if we know these attributes in advance, how do we let the user pick which ones we want in the output? So let's see if we can do that. And I will try and use the same data that I used last week. Okay, so what we're going to do first is I'm just going to put a creator down. I'm not even going to read the JSON at this point because we don't need to read the JSON. We're just sort of assuming that it's coming down from a HTTP caller. I just happen to have a file locally already. So then we go onto the JSON fragmenter. And I can say, just bring that file in that I've already got downloaded, electric car track.json. So we're flattening the items there, and we've got these attributes to expose. But basically, I don't really care about that because, again, the end user doesn't care about what's being exposed. The end user cares about what goes into the output. So I'm just going to zoom in a bit on that just so you can see. So we've got the output there. We've got the result for each one. And if I query that information, we can see that we've got time, voltage, latitude, longitude, heading, speed, and so on. So what am I going to do with that? Well, I'm going to use a SchemaScanner, just as Karakavu suggested. So actually, I'm going to write this out to CSV. So I'm going to put a CSV writer down first, and this is going to be dynamic because it's going to be a dynamic workspace. And I'm going to put the output in this output folder. Parameters, it doesn't really matter right now. Click OK. There it is. So there's my dynamic writer. So the data can just go straight to that. What we also need to do is we need to get the schema. So actually the SchemaScanner comes in there. The output still goes straight to that, but the schema comes out of here. And normally we can just put that schema straight onto there as well. So we could say, okay, now I've got to go back to the SchemaScanner. If you remember some of this, we want to output the schema first, so it makes sure it gets it to the writer first. And the schema definition name is FME feature type name, so I'm just going to copy that and paste it into here as the schema definition. So that's where the schema is coming from. So if we run this, what I'm going to get is just a basic output with all of the attributes in there, like so. So we've got all of the attributes: creation instance, JSON type, JSON index, blah, blah, blah. And here's the schema, and you can see all of the attributes there have their names and their data type. So say I want to choose which one of those go through and which ones don't. The ideal way would be to delete an item from that list. But FME doesn't have a list item deleter transformer, which at times like this, it's a definite issue there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that list and explode it into features so we get a feature for every attribute. Then I'm going to filter those attributes, and whatever's left, I'll put it back together into a list to create the output schema. Makes sense, right? So what am I going to do here? List exploder, that was it, yes. So list exploder, I'm going to explode the attribute list, and it's just going to be a bunch of features now. So now we've got a feature for each. So creation instance, JSON type, JSON instance for each attribute with its data type. And the aggregator can put that back together. So the aggregator puts that back together. And we say, let's see, what are we doing? We're creating a list again. And the list has got to have the right name, which is attributes. Now I've got to figure out if it was I think it's attributes, lowercase. And the attributes that go into there are name and FME data type. I also have to say, keep the incoming attributes, because if I don't do that, I'll lose the information about what the feature type name is. I'll lose the information for the schema to get merged back onto the features. So I need to keep that attribute. Okay, let me just check in what was in this list. So that list was called, okay, it was called attribute, not attributes. But I got to make sure it's got the same name, because I'm trying to recreate that FME attribute schema there. And that should be able to go back into there. So all I need to do in the middle now is decide which ones of these I don't want. So for example, in this we've got creation index, JSON type, JSON index, result. Result is the one that's got this whole big wad of JSON text in there. So what I could do here is I could say, let's get rid of underscore result. So if the name of the attribute, actually I'm going to say not equals underscore result. That way we get to keep the original. And so that's a failure if it's not. Okay, so there we go. I pass that through, goes through the aggregator, comes into the output. I don't think this is going to work. In fact, I know it didn't, because it says 5:31 and my clock says 5:35. So I know that didn't work. But I also know why it didn't work. Ignoring feature with unexpected feature type creator. So I think what that means is that the features from the output of the SchemaScanner arrived before the aggregator did. So in other words, the features got there and there was no schema ready for them. And obviously here we've said output the schema first. So what's causing it not to be first? Well, what's causing it not to be first is the fact that we've got an aggregator. I've got a group-based transformer in there. It's blocking that. And I think that's what's happening. So if and I'm just going to prove this here just because I think this is interesting to see. So I'm going to put a breakpoint in there. I'm going to rerun that. And when we get to the breakpoint, I'm going to... So what have we got coming out of there? So let's just increase the width of the canvas a bit. So that's the fragmenter. Okay, so we're getting 16 fragments out. And it goes into the SchemaScanner, and the schema comes out, goes into the aggregator. So we're aggregating all of that back together. How many attributes were there? I think it were 30 something. So I've got to do this a few times. 8, 9, 10. Let's see. 7. You've got to be careful with this because sometimes it takes a while for the number to catch up with you on here. So you think, oh, 28 features have gone through, but it could be like 30 or something, and it just hasn't caught up yet. So 29, 30. How many did we have? We have 34. So we've still got a few to go. Right. Okay, so you see there, that's what's happened. The features are starting to come out of the SchemaScanner before the schemas come through the aggregator. And that, as soon as we did that, that's where we got that error message, or warning message rather, ignoring feature with unexpected feature type, because it didn't get that information through from here. So that's the problem. Actually, I think that message may be a bit sort of misleading, because, I mean, it's not really misleading, but it's saying that's the feature type, which is true, but it's not really that we're looking for. We're looking for JSON fragment to fragments. We're looking for a schema that matches, and that's just saying, well, I'm throwing this away because it doesn't. This feature type doesn't exist. So maybe we can tweak some of these messages a bit. Anyway, that's the problem that's happening there, and that's confirmed it. So I can just finish that. So I can try. One of the things I can think of that might help that is to put a blocker in there as well, and just say let's block this with a sorter transformer. Just do JSON index, natural, ascending. It doesn't really matter what we sorted on. The point is that we're blocking it. In fact, what am I doing that for? We've got a transformer that does that. It's the feature holder. So I'm going to hold the features in there. Now, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm going to put another... No, okay, let's just rerun that and see what happens. So we're rerunning. So we've got 16 features coming through there. See, I knew this was going to happen, and one way around it is to sort the data so that the schema is always first. But it seemed to me that if we could hold that data up, it will be much preferable. So there are the features going into the feature holder. Now what's going to exit first? Is it going to be the feature holder or the aggregator? I'm hoping it's the aggregator, and it's not. So yeah, so that didn't make any difference. So what we're going to have to do, unfortunately, is I'm going to have to put an attribute creator in here. This is going into a bit more detail than really the point of it is, but sort order 99, and this one's got a sort order of 1 because it's a schema, it comes first. It doesn't have to be 99, it could be any number that's greater than 1. So then I've got the sorter transformer like that, and I'm going to sort by that number, which was, what did I call it? Sort order, didn't I? Yes, I called it sort order, and we're going to say numeric ascending, because we want that in that order. Let's make sure that worked. Okay, so did we get that message again? No, we didn't. So that's what that's all about there. So that, sorry, so that should have worked this time. So if I look at the output for that, 540, yeah, that's the right time. We got, oh no, here we go, it reloaded, yeah, there we go. So it dropped the underscore result, which is what I wanted it to do. The other one I might want to get rid of is creation instance. So I could also throw that in my filter and say, that'd be an and, won't it? And name not equal to, oops, creation instance. So that'll get rid of that one as well. Yeah, it's unfortunate that it snagged the schema up and it didn't come out in the right order. But obviously now I've got to rerun because I've got the breakpoint on still. Turn that off. Yeah, it's unfortunate that happens because now we've got 3 transformers to sort that data when it will be better off without. But anyway, we go back to here, reload it. Yes, creation instance is gone. So by doing that, we can decide what we want to avoid going in the output or have in the output. And so we should be able to do that. Now, I've tried some of this stuff up to this point just to make sure I could get it to work, but I haven't tried this next step. But I think it should work. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to make a parameter that goes into the tester, and we'll put things in there like, okay, so let's go navigator, user parameters. I don't really care what the destination file is, so I'm going to get rid of that parameter. Manage parameters, this one's going to be a choice, And let's see, what are we going to do? We're going to give it a value and a display. So the value is speed, and I'm going to call it vehicle speed, latitude, vehicle latitude, longitude, vehicle longitude. Okay, so I'm going to click OK on that. I'm right. Oh, actually, I've got to put that in here, don't I? So I'm going to duplicate that line and copy, paste. There we go. And name not equal to user parameter. So now if I rerun this, I say, oh, I don't want vehicle speed in the output. We should find that that gets dropped from the schema, and now vehicle speed shouldn't be in there. I don't know where it was. It was in there somewhere, but it shouldn't be there anymore. And just to confirm that, I can look in the failed port, and there we go, speed got dropped. So I rerun that. I can say, okay, this time I don't want the latitude in, and that'll do the same thing. Latitude should fail the test. So, yay, that works. Now, of course, the thing there is you want to make sure that the user can select more than a single item. So we need to make that a list rather than a drop-down. And allow multiple selections. And we'll click OK. Now, what I want to do here is, because I'm not altogether sure what order that's going to come in, so I'm going to do a parameter fetcher. Actually, it doesn't really matter where I fetch it, but I'm going to do it here anyway. Say parameter name, parameter, target attribute underscore parameter, because I'm not really sure what the format is when I pick multiples. Like if I pick speed, longitude, and latitude, what is the output format of that? Is it? I think it might be space delimited, but we'll find out here. So parameter, yeah, that looks like space delimited. So, and I also noticed that we got to pick other attributes as well, which disable attribute assignment. I think that might help us there. Let me just check that to make sure. Yeah, there we go. So turning off attribute assignment meant we can't assign an attribute to it. I've got to pick from that list. So really what I got to do there is, instead of having equals or not equals, interesting. I mean, I think officially we really should do this with a regular expression, because if I just say in, well, that could be a bit open. Like we could have a name like speed and speed underscore kilometers. And if I say don't give me speed, then it won't give me the speed kilometers as well, because that's going to be in there as well. So technically, I think you'd really want to make that a regular expression. But for now, I'm not going to worry too much. So if I run that now, I'm hoping we should get 5 items fail in the test. And they all failed in the test. Oh, okay, because that's got to be and not. Because, yeah. There we go. Let's. Only 2. So what have I done there that's wrong? Something not quite right. Yeah, that's pretty sure. I mean, that's. A name in. I guess I'm going to have to look at what the in function does. Like, what is that expecting? Because it might be looking for something else, like in. Okay, comma delimited. Well, that makes it more interesting, doesn't it? So what I'm going to have to do is fetch the parameter like I just did. And you can see why this really ought to be a regular expression now, because this is starting to get a bit hacky. But string replacer, replace parameter, replace a space with a comma. And then instead of looking at the parameter, we're now going to look at the attribute, because that's what we called it. We changed the parameter to an attribute. There we go. Now we've got 5 failures. So result, latitude, longitude, speed, creation instance, all shouldn't be in the output now. Click OK, and we shouldn't find, if I search for latitude, yeah, it can't find that text in there. So can't find latitude, can't find longitude, can't find speed, because we excluded them from the thing. So really, now all I've got to do now is go back to this parameter and edit it and add all of the different configurations that could be in there. For example, JSON type, JSON index, which we might not want anyway. We probably just, those are ones that we could probably just add to the tester as automatic fails. So I could say copy and paste that. What was it? JSON underscore type. Yep. And JSON underscore index. Like so. And again, go through all the rest, make sure they're added. And then whenever I run this, I can just come into this. And that's how the user gets to choose which ones of those are in the output. And again, I don't think the user ever wanted to decide what was exposed in the workspace. To them as an end user, what's more important is they get to choose what goes into the output. That's how I'm interpreting this question now. So that hopefully will help. There you go, JSON ones got removed. And yeah, so there's all of those. The other thing we could do, I guess, I can see there's battery current, battery level, battery range. So we could, and I'm sort of off-roading here a bit, we could turn that into a tree. And we could say, I'm not quite sure how these tree settings work, but we could do something like battery, and then battery current, battery level, battery range are 3 items under that on the tree. But I'm really not sure how the trees are defined. I should be, but we'd have to. Yeah, I'd have to look that up. It's user parameter tree. But that's the sort of thing you could do if you really wanted. Is you could say this is a tree, and you can pick all of the battery items all in one go, all of the latitude and longitude, all of the speed. That sort of thing. So, sorry for the noise in the background, but hey, it is working at home. And parameter identifier prompt publish required parameter configuration. If type is choice. Tree view. If tree is selected, so specify tree node delimiter, then specify the choices. So, okay, so it would look like that. And yeah, I guess you would do battery, comma, whatever, and it would sort the tree out. So, yeah, that's how you would do that. And yeah, so you could say turn off all of the battery ones, turn off all of the speed related ones, and so on. So yeah, so that's what I wanted to show, and I think that really is the way to solve this. As I mentioned, it's not. I mean, it is dynamic in that it's like letting the user dynamically pick what goes into the output, but it's not fully dynamic in that if your HTTP or your JSON changes somehow and has different attributes in it, then it's not going to do that because these are fixed values. Like these choices are fixed in that. So if that was the case, I mean, I can see how this would work. I haven't tried it, and I don't think I could. It would take me quite a while because I'm not very good at scripting. But you could do a scripted parameter, and the scripted parameter would be something like, I don't know, ping the HTTP for a list of, for a JSON, get the JSON attributes, turn that into a list, then somehow I guess you make your choice point to that. I think it's possible. I don't know. I really don't. I mean, I've tried doing that with someone before, and the only way we could get it actually was to use two workspaces, I think. And the one workspace ran, and it read the list of values, and then it read the second workspace as a file, like it used the workspace reader. It read this workspace in, it updated all the parameters to be the values you wanted, and then wrote it out again. Then it ran this workspace, or then it let the user run it. So, I mean, you could do that as a two-parter, but yeah, there is no way that. In fact, the more I think about it, the more like Python's not going to work. I don't see a way of letting a user choose parameters or choosing attributes that have been downloaded midway through a translation, because the parameters only work at runtime, like literally at runtime. So not when you're authoring, not when it's running. Literally, as soon as you hit the run button, then you get to choose the parameters. So you set those, then it goes to JSON fragmentum, pulls out a different set of attributes. Well, it's too late to do anything about it then. So, yeah, that's why it's not dynamic. That's all I can think of is, that process I did before where it was a two-stage thing. But, and you can find that somewhere online because I added that as a question of the week before, so it should still be out there somewhere. Anyway, I hope that was useful. I got on a bit longer than I really realized, but I did want to make sure that I showed this technique and you got to see how it should work in certain circumstances at least. So, and that way you can give this workspace to someone. They can run it on server or in Workbench or Quick Translator or Command Line or anything. They've just got to pick which values they don't want and which ones they do. And yeah, click OK, not OK. In fact, I guess there I'm saying which ones do you want to get rid of. Let me check that. So I've got latitude and longitude should go through, but they're not. They're getting caught out. So yeah, I guess I've got that the wrong way around. Somehow I've got my logic twisted because the ones I didn't pick, or the ones I picked, got ejected when they should have gone through and vice versa. So my logic's a bit iffy there. But other than that, yeah, that's what it should be. Okay, well, I hope I've redeemed myself from last week's video because that really did turn out to be a bit of a disaster zone when I tried to demo that. And with good reason, because that was never going to work. There's no way you can actually say which attributes to expose through a user parameter. I just don't see how that could possibly work. So I'm going to check with our developers about that. But yeah, so hopefully this was useful. Even if this wasn't your question, I think it should be useful to you just to look at how this works. It's a good example of the SchemaScanner. It's a good example of how you can drop bits from a schema or let the user choose what's going to go through in the output. So, yeah. Okay, well, thanks for tuning in. If you watched this far, thank you. You're fantastic. you're worth. You're higher. I used to say you're higher ranked than the tester transformer, but the tester transformer is not number one anymore. So I got to say you're higher ranked than the attribute manager, and that goes for all of the users. So again, thanks for watching, and yeah, tune in another time. Okay, bye, folks.